Podcast High Fidelity Clinical Simulation The Review. This podcast is intended for the facilitators who have completed the following training: High Fidelity Clinical Simulation at ESPA Montréal. Part 3 The Debriefing. Here's a definition from Fanning and Gaba giving the essence of debriefing. In simulation, debriefing is a guided and stimulated reflection during an experiential learning cycle. Let's take a closer look at what this definition means. Concretely, debriefing is an active process for learners where they express their emotional states, explain their understanding of the situation, analyze the clinical situation, synthesize information. It's also a group feedback and a reflection activity. It's a mandatory and essential step in the simulation. In other words, the debriefer is a facilitator, a guide to reflection. Here's what debriefing isn't: a place for debate, a forum for opinions, an attempt to correct all learners' flaws, an attempt to correct any missing knowledge of learners. So the debriefer is not a teacher or a trainer. Let's review the structure of the debriefing. There are 4 essential phases to it. Let's examine them more closely. Phase 1, the reaction phase. This phase allows learners to release emotions and describes their first impressions. Although difficult, it is necessary to avoid discussing or even analyzing the feelings in relation to the interventions made. This discussion should be saved for the analysis phase. Phase 2, the description phase. This stage is used for clarifying the structure of the debriefing, checking the general understanding of the simulation, identifying the diagnosis and clarify the clinical case, and reviewing the objectives of the simulation. This step serves to prepare the ground. It ensures that everyone shares the same level of understanding of the scenario they have just experienced to fuel the discussion during the next step, namely the analysis. Step 3, the analysis. This stage is often the longest. We recommend starting with the first objective. Address the observations made around this objective in the following manner: share an observation, elicit reaction, make learners reflect on their professional practice, communicate your assessment, and ensure that all performance gaps are covered for this objective. Briefly summarize the discussions, ensure that no questions remain unattended, and move to the next objective. Approach all objectives in the same way. Here, we will digress briefly to discuss the use of video recording during the briefing. It is possible to use the video recording of the simulation during the analysis phase of the debriefing. Here are some recommendations for maintaining psychological safety when using video recordings. Beforehand, ask learners for consent. Use 2 to 4 excerpts per debriefing session maximum. Show the good moves in relation to the objectives or the good actions accomplished. When viewing, indicate to learners what to focus their attention on. If you wish to use the video recordings of your session during debriefing, don't hesitate to request assistance from a simulation resource person. They will be happy to guide you through it. Here are some pitfalls to avoid when using video recording, as they could negatively impact your learners and the quality of your debriefing. Use excerpts that are not aligned with the objectives of the scenario. Use excerpts that are too long. Do undirected observation. Use excerpts that target performance gaps. Watch the recording without any specific educational purpose. We will now close our discussion on the use of video recording to look at the elements that will help you to facilitate successfully the analysis phase. Here are some key points that will shape your roadmap to a constructive learning discussion. Adopt a positive attitude and a constructive mindset. Highlight that the experiential learning activity is formative. Reinforcing the importance of mutual respect among learners is essential. Utilizing open-ended question, assessing learners' comprehension of the scenario, eliciting reflection and discussion, gradually obtaining the engagement of all members, focusing on the learning objectives, discussing the notes taken during observation. So, the good intervention, the performance gaps, teamwork, and communication. In this phase of the debriefing, there are also some commonly used pitfalls that have the potential to make your facilitation less effective. Speak more often than learners. Transform the debriefing into a theoretical course. Use quiz questions or closed ended questions. Target the performance of certain learners. Only communicate with the most talkative learners. By being aware of these potential pitfalls, it will be easier for you to put strategies in place to prevent them from appearing in your debriefings. Let's look now at the fourth and final phase of the debriefing, application and summary. During this phase, the facilitator asks learners to summarize their learnings in relation to the different objectives. A useful strategy is to ask them to share a message or a word they took away from the debriefing discussion that they would like to apply in their clinical practice. Assessing the potential for transferring learning into practice is a good indicator of the success of the debriefing. You can take their thinking further by asking them if they see any obstacles to integrating these new learnings into their practice and if they have any strategies in mind to get around them. These questions allow learners to contextualize the learning achieved in simulation and to become aware of the added value of this type of learning activity for their clinical practice. Finally, it's important to end on a positive note. As a facilitator, it's crucial to self observe and critically evaluate your practice when conducting clinical simulation activities. To help you reflect constructively on your debriefing, here are the 6 key elements of a quality debriefing from the Dash tool. Incorporating these elements into your practice is essential for ensuring a high quality learning experience for your learner. Remember, your ability to facilitate effective debriefings will develop over time. Continuous exposure and repeated practice are pivotal for building confidence and easier facilitation skills. We would like to thank you for joining us for this series of podcasts focusing on reviewing logistical information and important stages of a high fidelity clinical simulation activity at ESPA Montreal. We hope that the elements highlighted in our podcast will be useful to you during your next simulation activity. Looking forward to seeing you there soon.